No, you're on live.
Oh.
I'm gonna edit it after. YouTube has a really good one that you can edit.
Okay. Presentation, we're gonna put it on in the back?
Yeah, I think for now. Is there a way to turn off the light for a sec?
No, it's the projector, it's fine.
Okay. We'll go ahead.
Okay. So, hi guys! Welcome to the Sip and Succeed Finance Workshop portion. So, this is the first out of 3 workshops that we have planned to offer people. So, the first portion is finance. I feel like this is something that people are always curious about, wanting to learn more about, but just don't know how to access it, don't know the resources, don't know where to find it, don't know where to start. So this portion is exactly that. This is just where to start finding out how, because everybody is always wondering, how do other people know what they're doing? How is it like this person knows they're investing? They're always talking about these stocks, Twitter this, Twitter that, and then you're just like overwhelmed because you don't even know how you'd even walk into that, how you'd even start with that kind of thing. So this is pretty much get all your finance questions out of there, understand yourself, understand your finance values, and be able to navigate the whole world of finance. Because once you're more secure with your finances and what you're doing, the world is much more enjoyable. You're able to enjoy stuff. You can go on trips without worrying about it. You can be like, I plan on buying a house here and there. You're not like, I don't want to have kids. It's not affordable, but you just don't want to have kids, you know? So it takes away that whole finances are stopping anything because you're able to plan around it now and actually know what you're doing. After this session, September 5th, we have a wellness session because with finances, you also want to have your wellness. It'll kind of tie in more with like the value section of the finance as well too, in that sense. So it's like a wellness and spirituality and career guidance. So this is more about foundational. We'll have speakers who will be speaking on like their own career paths, because I feel like again that's another overwhelming thing for so many people. So we'll have people who are coming there and they'll talk about their not so straightforward career paths, struggles with careers, how it's been like, how to get established, anxieties with that and such, along with the spiritual aspect of understanding yourself, your values, and a great way to decompress in that sense, no matter what type of religious background people are. And then the wellness portion, which would include mental health, resources, that kind of thing as well too. So for today, we have our very own MBA holder, finance expert, Grace Chenesai Vela, who's going to be guiding us through our finance workshop today. And I hope you guys enjoy it and learn a lot and find a lot of value out of it, because this easily is one of those things that can change your life, or at least change your outlook on life and in finances and stuff, and provide you with that freedom and resources that would be great and helpful to you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited to be leading this, and I will be going back and forth. You guys can see the screen, which is great. Yeah, they can. So, so my name is Grace Vela, and I'm the owner of You Deserve Grace. I'm a financial and business consultancy. So my whole thing is helping people discover their version of rich. The reason my company name is You Deserve Grace is it comes from 2 things. So one, when I was leaving work, I used to be an investment manager, like a portfolio manager, and I think I was the only Black woman in that role across the organization I used to work at around the country here in Canada. It was a large bank, and when I was leaving, I felt bad that I didn't have another Black woman to pass my portfolio down to, right? I felt like I should have mentored, because I was in finance for like 17 years, and one of my coworkers was like, you know what, you need to give yourself some grace. And I was like, you know what, that's so foundational, just that wording of you deserve grace, because a lot of times we really do hold judgment to ourselves on the smallest of things and the biggest of things. And so in personal finance, the work that I do is surrounding values and understanding. After working in finance for over 17 years, and I still do, I'm a licensed mortgage broker in the province of BC, but I do help clients across the country because I work with a large nationwide brokerage. The work that I do has always led me to people in the same like kind of questions, and it's never about the money, is what I always say, right? It is about bigger things. Like in some of my YouTube videos, I talk about this. A lot of our trauma, like counselors will deal with it and tell you like who we are comes from the 6-year-old version of us. Whatever that 6-year-old wanted and didn't have, that's what we're working towards, whether we like it or not. And a lot of times if we don't understand what this little 6 to 8-year-old within us is struggling with or really is desiring or whatever, then then that's where we live a life that's incongruent. So a lot of the work that I do is helping people discover their congruency, like figuring out like where do I want to go? Because sometimes when you think about where you want to go, it doesn't jive with what you're actually doing today. And so how do I make those questions? And so for our workshop, guys, feel free to ask questions. Definitely do appreciate that. It is on YouTube live because I do have a channel. And so your questions may not be audible to the people online, but that's their problem for not being here in person. But they do get the information. And so one of the tools that I have created is a journal, because we need to merge our finances with our life, right? A lot of times people have a budget and then they have a daily plan, right? Like this is where I'm going, this is what I'm going to do, but none of it comes together with my money. And so the planner that I do have, it's a journal, but it's also a budgeting planner. So you guys will get a copy. So everybody who's registered for the workshop will get a copy on September 5th. So then that's when the copies will arrive for everyone. And so a lot of what we're doing today, you will have homework. I'm glad that we've got 5 hours. A bit of it we're going to spend going outside, because you do need to decompress with the amount of stuff that we're going to be talking about. The way the workshop is designed, it's 4 sessions. So the first one is about values and goal setting. So we'll start there, because there is no point. A lot of people think when they come to me, they're like, Grace, I need help doing a budget. And it's like, no, you don't. Because money is a representation of our identity. And that's why money really causes divorce. Is because a lot of times people feel like they don't have the ability to express themselves, right? And that's what money is. It's that tool to express yourself. And so when you're in a relationship, it's even worse, because everybody's got different forms of expression, right? And that's all it is. It's just a tool. And so a lot of times when people come to me and say, Grace, help me do a budget, it's like, well, I need to know who you are, and you need to know who you are. So that's where we're starting first. So we'll do the values worksheet. That's where we're going to start. And then we will take a short break after values, and then we'll move into the actual budgeting aspect. So if you've got a smartphone, there's some links that we'll work at that you'll be able to do. And then, so those who are listening online, I will try to type the links in here and there, but I usually forget, and I'll post it in the description and the comments after. So if you guys do go back and reference the YouTube, you can also just reference the links in there. Because I use the work for a financial institution, I use the Financial Consumer Services Agency of Canada. I use their information. So as part of our laws here in Canada, personal finance, taxes, those things, everybody should be able to do them on their own. So the government is actually required to provide you with the information as a consumer to be able to do your taxes on your own, as well as to understand your finances. And so they've got lots of really good neutral, information and like worksheets and things like that. And so those are the tools that we will be using. And so they're all available to everybody anywhere. So that's that. What else is there I want to cover? Oh, everyone's favorite topic is debt. We cover debt last. So debt will be debt as an investment tool and debt as management, even mortgages and stuff, we cover that last. And the reason I cover debt last is because a lot of people attach negativity to debt and they feel like they failed. And so if you start there, nobody wants to talk to you because they're just angry. And so we work on bringing our inner child back in first, centering our inner child, and then from our inner child, then that's when we grow. So we will cover investing. I love that one, the investing one. So we'll do that one after lunch. So after lunch, we'll do investing and budgeting. Cool. Any questions? I don't feel like you're paying attention, sis. It looks like you're reading. She doesn't have one in front of her. All right. So let's get started. Hold on. Sorry, this is the second one. My bad. This is my favorite one. The second one, the budgeting, because we actually talk about personalities as well. It's this one. And so then we're going to use, and I'm just gonna do it this way. Oh, sorry. The reason it's called young money, not young people money, is because you can start experiencing money at different ages. So a lot of women, for example, or people that were married, because this happens with men as well, when one person was handling the finances, and then all of a sudden they're left to handle their own finances, right? So we talk about that. So first things first, we talked about this inner little child, right? And so one thing that I like to start with is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we'll also cover Maslow's financial hierarchy of needs. So as a human being, regardless of where in the world you live, you have basic fundamental needs, right? So at the base of it, we all need shelter. We can agree on that? Like, as human beings, our skin sucks for sleeping outside. That's why we kill animals and like put on their fur, like back in the day, right? So we need shelter, we need food, we need sleep, we need sex, right? And I categorize that as intimacy, right? Because at any age, you need to feel connected. We all do. And that's where, like with little kids, you see like the bullying and the cliques and things like that. It starts, and it even triggers like financial things, right? I always say, I remember when I was a kid, like Nikes were like the big thing, and we didn't live, like we lived in the city in downtown Toronto. And so like having, like Walmart came out around that time, but it was in the suburbs. I know, right? Can you imagine a life without Walmart? So there's like Sports Check and like Nike stores. And so like, if you were wearing like Walmart shoes, people are like, what are you wearing? You know what I mean? So like even that grouping, that intimacy, even at young ages, is impacted by money, right? So when you look back to your younger ages, you may find that, right? That's in there. So don't just look at it as sex because it's just intimacy. Because even as a kid, you know, when you think about food, remember your lunch boxes? Came to Canada at like 10, so my lunch boxes were very ethnic, right? And to me, like the rich kids had Lunchables, you know, and that wasn't my life, you know. So I had like my own, like, okay, when you have money, you can do this and this and this kind of thing. Safety is the next one that you need. So both when you're employed, like for myself, I've switched out of like a really secure pension, salaried environment to the I don't know when I'm going to get paid consultancy environment, right? So I've sacrificed safety, and that's a big thing for people. When we're talking to young women, safety is one of the things that makes us make bad decisions in relationships, because we sometimes may stay for the money, right? Or we may get in a relationship because of money. And that's one thing as young women that we have to be cognizant of and make that a key financial priority, is how can I secure my own bag? Right? How can I secure myself? Because if we aren't feeling safe and connected, we do have a challenge with that. And so health is one of those things, you know, like hazardous work, you know, becomes a thing. And then, yeah, so the next level is that friends, family, again, greater intimacy is on that next level. And so do you guys ever hear about that? Like when people are like, oh, she made it big, so she doesn't talk to us now? Or she has a job, so we can't be friends with her anymore, you know, like we're all like still looking for work, the relationship's awkward. That's that next level of love and belonging. So it's like a higher level beyond the base. It's now like communities and cliques, you know, like these are the moms of toddlers that are hippies and like make their own food, kind of, you know, like that's that grouping versus the takeout moms who are in welfare, that kind of thing. Do you get what I mean? So that's that next higher level grouping, and we try to find ourselves in there. And sometimes we deselect ourselves out of groups because we don't feel worthy, right? Like I'm working at McDonald's, but she's working as an engineer, so I don't feel like I'm good enough to talk to her, right? And she never said that. We made that decision, right? So that's some of the stuff. And then it's interesting because it goes right back into the next level. Can you guys see that? Almost? If you can't, move up. Yeah, so it goes right into that next level, the esteem, the self-esteem, right? If I feel like I belong and I feel secure, then I can be the best version of me, right? I can bring that version out to other people and be able to share that with other people. I'm no longer feeling insecure about myself, right? I've got that confidence, and I can talk to my friend who is an engineer, because I'm cool with my job at McDonald's, right? Because I have that confidence in myself. And then the last level in Maslow's hierarchy of needs is that being able to give back. It really is self-actualization is what it's called, but it's when we're fully accepting of other people, because we have nothing to be ashamed of. We have nothing to be, we're able to give back because we have that full confidence. So the confidence is no longer, it's just in me, it's now confidence to actually give back to others. So how this all ties into money is why we're going to watch this YouTube video before we get into the financial hierarchy of needs. So give me a sec to load this up. We might have a
How do
commercial.
we stop it? We need someone who can code in COBOL. What's COBOL?
All right. It's a little bit longer. There's one commercial, YouTube one's in between.
History of money. Money is best described as a medium of exchange. The concept of money has been around since the dawn of human civilization. Money allows an individual to trade what he has for what he needs or wants. Currently, there are over 150 currencies used worldwide. 70% of the monetary value in the world is denoted in the US dollar, euro, UK pound, Japanese yen, and Chinese yuan. Bartering. Dawn of civilization. Obsidian, a glass-like volcanic rock, was one of the earliest forms of money. 9000 BC, humans began to grow crops and cattle. This gave birth to bartering, where livestock and grain were exchanged for other items which were deemed essential or useful at the time. 2279 BC, the ancient Babylonians defined the first guidelines for money and established a form of measurement called the shekel. Cowrie shells to metal coins. 1300 BC, cowrie seashells were used as money in areas as diverse as Africa, South Asia, Australia and Oceania. 1100 BC, early Chinese civilizations are credited for the first use of standardized currency in the shape of miniature, bronze casts of replica knives and spades. 687 BC, other civilizations started developing their own unique coins. The first official currency ever was minted out of gold and featured a roaring lion's head. 300 BC, the Roman Empire established its own currency, known as denarius. These coins were mostly minted out of silver and depicted important symbolic images about the Roman Republic. Paper money. 118 BC, the Chinese issued the first ever leather banknote. It was made out of a rare white deerskin and its edges were painted with bright colors. 701 AD, paper notes initially appeared in the 7th century, during the Tang dynasty, but their widespread use only became prevalent much later. 1661 AD, the first European banknotes were printed in Sweden by Stockholm's Banco. They were redeemable against their stated amount of silver coins, held by the bank. Credit cards. 1946 AD, the first bank card, named, was introduced in 1946 by John Biggins, a banker in Brooklyn. 1950 AD, the Diners Club released its first card and was used in more than 20 restaurants in New York to pay for bills without the need for cash. 1958 AD, a credit card with revolving credit was issued by Bank of America. American Express was launched and was the first card to be accepted worldwide. 1970 AD, the magnetic strip was perfected and allowed for personal and financial information to be reliably decoded by a machine. Electronic money. 1990 AD, chip technology was introduced. This allowed for large amounts of information to be stored and for verification processes to occur at the points of sales. 1994 AD, the advent of the World Wide Web server and browser gave birth to the online shopping ecosystem. 1997 AD, European banks began to offer mobile banking with primitive versions of smartphones. 1998 AD, PayPal was founded in California and it allowed its members to leverage the medium of the internet to make payments and transfer money. Cryptocurrencies. 2008 AD, an entity known as Satoshi Nakamoto posted a paper titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. 2012 AD, another cryptocurrency known as Ripple was created. It aims to enable secure, instant and nearly free global financial transactions of any size with no chargebacks. 2016 AD, Bitcoin and blockchain-related technologies start permeating in the mainstream media. Thank you.
Imagine being able to build an app with your
What do you
name
guys think of that?
on it, just by thinking about it.
Did you think
Meet
credit cards were that
44,
recent?
A complete AI create.
Does that surprise you? Credit cards were that recent? Yeah, it was mainly restaurants. Mainly restaurants that were taking cards. And it's crazy because now we think we can't live without this stuff. Isn't that nuts? It's just started like last week. And then every child's like, oh, I can't do anything without a credit card. So yeah. So I thought we should see that. And the whole point of money was to initially get what you don't have. with what you do have, right? Which is a key thing about that phrase, time is money. That's where it comes from. So what you could do with your time to gather and sell on the market. Like she's beading. She makes waist beads. Good example. So with her time, she can bead and then exchange that for money, right? And that was the initial thing because the person who wants the beads doesn't have what she wants, right? So is that how we're still using money? Are we thinking about that when we're exchanging money? Like some people I've heard they'll be like, oh, this took me this many hours of work to do. Do you guys ever do that? Like when you're like, okay, I get paid $30 an hour. This is going to cost me $90. That means that's 3 hours of work plus tax, so maybe 4 hours. Do you guys ever do that? You do, yeah. Right? I've heard of people doing that. So that's a good example how time is money. So this is one of my favorite slides. Put a lot of work into this. So this is what's called the financial hierarchy of needs. So same idea as the Maslow hierarchy of needs. It just, the difference is we're now strictly talking about money. And a lot of times, why this one matters is because if we're making the wrong decisions early, then, or like we're jumping, like for example, I'll use that accumulation and debt management one. A lot of people are on the market, in the stock market, and they're using investments to try to generate cash flow, right? But because they don't necessarily have enough cash flow to meet their needs, then they have to sell their stocks, right? Not at the best time to sell, not at the time they would have wanted to sell, but because they need the cash. And so that's like an example of if you jump stages without having your base set up, right? The other one I see as a mortgage broker is people who don't have savings wanting to buy houses. And there are some lenders, like I work with 29 different lenders, there are some lenders that will allow you to use debt as your down payment. And so I'll see that where people don't have that base floor, which is your cash flow, your basic needs, or the financial safety, which is often talked about as insurance or 3 to 6 month savings. So they don't have those two, but then they just want to accumulate investments right away. And so then they'll borrow to be able to invest, but then let's say the house, something happens to the house and they no longer have money to do that, right? And it's the same as starting a business as well. If you jump too high, you invest too much in a business, but you don't have the actual cash flow for your day-to-day needs, you start liquidating the business sooner than you wanted to. So that's what this really is about. What else is on the side? So at the top is financial freedom, independence, which is really what everybody, or not a lot, like I would say everybody's really aiming towards. So that stage of like that confidence to be able to make decisions. I think Teresa spoke to it. You know, we all want to get to that stage to be able to make decisions confidently without worrying about, oh no, are my bills going to be paid if I do this, right? To be able to make courageous decisions, I think, is what financial freedom really is, to just be able to step out. And then legacy abundance. So sometimes you'll have people, I love using this example because we're all from the continent, and as Black people, we understand this. We also have people who want to pay school fees for other people's kids back home or take care of other families. That's a legacy issue, right? And that same person who's doing all the legacy stuff, which is the last thing at the top, they don't have enough at the bottom there for their cash flow and basic needs. And so what often happens is that they end up in debt, right? So on this slide, I often say what's important is to make sure that, like the plain people say, make sure you put on your, oxygen mask first before you put on others. Because at some point, if you can't continue financially, but you've enabled somebody else a lifestyle that they can't afford, then they're going to fall harder, right? Because they don't know what it actually takes to have the lifestyle that they have because you've been funding it. And then when they lose that footing, they have no idea who they are, right? And a lot of times you'll hear someone say, who's never earned $1 in their mouth, say, I can't live in that neighborhood, right? Or I can't go to that school, or I can't go to that hospital. But that's what's actually within what they earn or can afford. But because you're the one who's been funding their lifestyle entirely, they have no idea what it takes, right? This goes to parents as well with kids. Like when we talk about setting up RESPs are that accumulation stage, is the third one, not at the basic cash flow and basic needs, right? So you have a lot of parents who'll start RESPs and they want to, maximize them for their kids so they can pay for their university education, but they don't have any retirement savings themselves, right? For Christians, I often use this slide to say the Bible says you will leave an inheritance for your children's children. A lot of people read that to say that your inheritance will be enough for your children and your children's children. That's not what it says. It says you will leave an inheritance for your children's children, meaning you'll have enough for your grandchildren, right? When they were having babies in the Bible, they're like 14, 15, 16, right? No one expects a 16-year-old to have enough to leave for another, like there's no expectation. God doesn't expect that from us. And a lot of parents will put that pressure on them to make sure that they have enough for their kids, right? And that's not where the pressure should be. We grow up with our kids, like it or not. And then once you're at that accumulation and debt management stage, then you can be looking at what can I do for my grandchildren, right? That's the expectation, that's the pressure. And so that's a conversation we have a lot to say. Don't worry about your kids' RESP. It sounds rude to say, but that is what needs to be done. Any questions there? Any thoughts on that slide? I'm not even reading my notes today. So there is let's talk about this. Sorry, forgot this was the needs versus wants slide. So we talk about shelter, right? This is where people, and we talked about that whole like what you can afford versus what you want, right? Those buckets are very different. Everybody agree with me? So when it comes to housing and accommodation, right? What is a need versus a want? Give me an example for that. For shelter, what is a need versus a want? A room is a need, yeah. Does it have to be on your own private room? Right? Like that's how basic we can start, right? But you'll have people who are struggling, especially in this age group, that live in an apartment with a pool and this and that, but they don't have, 6 months savings, and they don't have enough cash flow to meet their basic everyday needs, right? But to them, living in a prime area is really important, right? So that's something that's really important to constantly have on your mindset, right? What's another one? Transportation. Needs versus wants. Give that. You're a mother of 4. You've got 4 kids. What's a need versus a want? When it comes to transportation. Ooh, does it have to be luxury? Is a car a want or a need? No. I said mother of 4. Okay, what's the situation that makes it? Wait, if it depends on the situation, does that make it a want already? Wait, what job would need? Give me an example of a job that needs a car. Give me another job, because the salesperson does not need a car, unless the company's providing it.
I'd say mother of 4. Let's say she couldn't get enough room in one daycare for 2 of her kids, and they have to go to 2 different regions. You need a car because pickup times are
So I like that. So we're considering daycare a need. Is where we started. We added another need, childcare, outside the home. Is a need. I will be honest, I think daycare is one of the biggest rip-offs of time, because you're doing runs, you have to pack them lunch, you have to wash their clothes, like the amount of time spent taking a child to daycare and picking them up, and no, sorry, I just think it's one of those rip-offs, personally. But that's a great example, actually, childcare. The needs versus wants. I need my child taken care of during the time that I'm at work, right? Is daycare the only option, right? In Toronto, the neighborhood that I grew up in was a very strong Portuguese neighborhood, and a lot of the moms worked in the factories that were in and around the area, and so they did the whole like day home thing, where they basically rotated who had a young child at home and then gave that person all the young children that everybody had, which is so cool because the kids grew up in Canada, but they all grew up speaking Portuguese, right? And even the ones that were going to school, that's where they would come home to school after school and then be picked up. And it just rotated home after home. It was such a community thing of raising our kids rather than like a modern daycare setup, right? So things to think about. There are ways for sure. I think the starting point is I have a child. I need care for this child while I'm at work, right? And then so then when we do that, if we add these expenses and say, okay, well, if my children are in different places, this will increase my, because there comes a point when you do the whole rabbit wheel thing that you end up working to work. See what I mean? Like you're working to take your kids to daycare so that you can pay for the car to take your kids to daycare. So you've got to be careful of that rabbit wheel because that's what kills, that's what helps us not get to second stage, right? So transportation, this car mentality that we have in Canada, definitely one of the things that allows people to stay paycheck to paycheck. There's no two ways to say that nicely, but it definitely is number one. Because if you do a car loan, for example, right, I think you're looking at $300-400 a month in payments, right? And you've got car insurance, that's another $150. So where are we at? $550? We haven't included maybe $200 in gas for the month. So that's $750 already gone to a car. We haven't included getting winter tires. We haven't included parking. We haven't included anything. So by the time you have a car, you may be looking at $1,000 a month that's going towards your expenses. And when we look at the worksheet later, the budgeting worksheet, the government in Canada actually gives guidelines for what they think you should be spending on different categories. And I do think transportation, they put that at 10% of your budget. So if you're spending $1,000 on transportation, then that means you should be earning $10,000 a month, right? If you're gonna live comfortably. But chances are, if you're not earning $10,000 a month, right, and you do have a car that's costing you $1,000 a month, you're not living comfortably. And so that's where we have to start with our thingies here. So yeah, let's watch this quick YouTube video on that. We did house, car.
I dare you to
Let me build you a completely free e-commerce store,
You're so kind.
preloaded.
This designer bag has a great price. What do you think? Should I get it?
Needs and wants. Understanding the difference between needs and wants is crucial to good financial decision making. What is a need? A need is a requirement or essential item that is considered to be necessary for living. Examples include shelter, food and water, and clothing. These are essential for a person's health and safety. If needs are not met in a timely manner, they can lead to illness and inability to function properly. Needs are essential for survival. While the three most basic needs are food, shelter, and clothing, in modern society, education and healthcare have also become important. All these things are essential for everyone. What is a want? Something you desire, but don't need is a want. It typically improves your quality of life. You can think of a vacation, jewelry, entertainment, and maybe that new designer handbag. A person's wants are anything you would like to have, now or later. Individual wants can vary and may change from time to time. Our desires can be infinite, and unfortunately there are only limited means, so we need to find alternatives. How do you understand the difference between needs and wants? Certain needs are easy to identify. These are essential elements that you must have to survive. You might then say that everything else is a want and not a need, but it is not that simple. For example, some people view owning a car as a necessity. Others consider it a luxury, since they could walk, ride a bike, or take public transportation. It really depends upon your own particular situation. Other purchases can technically be classified as a need, even though if they really are more of a want. For example, what about clothes and shoes? You can spend a lot on expensive new name brand sneakers or save money and get the generic ones. Shoes are a need, but how about the name brand ones? It all comes down to your perspective and how you manage your money. Although most people would not consider it a need, is it a need or a want to own that designer handbag? What if you need a handbag for your daily use? Should a regular handbag be considered a need and an expensive designer one considered a want? How do you decide your needs and wants? To help, write down everything on paper and figure out how to split your income or prioritize your expenses. What you need to do is list your needs and wants and set a priority for each item. This will allow you to clearly see where your expenses are and will help you to categorize your priorities. First, list your needs in one column and your wants in the other. Then, put the highest priority items at the top and the low priority items at the bottom, separately, for both needs and wants. That will help you make your budgeting decisions. You'll soon realize that you can fulfill more of your wishes over time if you are able to distinguish between and prioritize your needs and wants. It really is a balance. Once you have clarity about your needs and wants, you can plan your budget to help you make spending decisions to realize your financial goals. Financial decisions will be influenced by what someone defines as a need or want. For example, a person who considers a new designer handbag a necessity will spend more than someone who uses a more basic one. Needs and wants can be distinguished according to their importance. The distinction is made between what is needed and what is desirable. Take a look at your own needs and wants so you can help realize your own personal financial goals.
What do you guys think of that? Thoughts? You gotta give me something. What do you think?
Interesting. I would say, look, I almost found it oversimplified.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, for example, with the bag one, it's like, oh, so at that point, you can also just carry grocery with you. It's like your bag instead, but if you're very child, make it as basic as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's a response. Because it's like some of the things you're looking at, and you're like, well, I was going to get a bag anyways, but it's okay, I don't have to. You know?
Mm-hmm.
That's everything.
I see that. Well, I think what he was trying to say there comes down to this. So needs, wants, and then priority level. So everyone's different, right? So I'm the type who doesn't care about clothes as long as I'm clothed, right? So for me, for example, clothing is a need, but it's a low priority item, right? I have a sister who's in media, right? So her looks are really important, right? Because everything is presentation in that industry, right? So I, as an adult, don't think I've ever paid to get my hair done. I don't think so. But like, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, so like, for example, for me, right, getting my hair done would be like a very low priority, right? Whereas for her, getting her hair done is a high priority because of the industry that she's in. And so what he's saying with the handbag is, you may be in an industry, or you may be a person who really values, you know, having luxurious goods, right? And I think the one thing that's important here, don't deny yourself the things you need. Because at the end of the day, if we're not happy, nothing works. Anybody ever tried to diet? Right? It doesn't work if you're denying yourself the things you need. One of the things you learn well in pregnancy is cravings come from deficiencies in your body. And there's ways to meet those deficiencies in your body, and that are good and that are bad, right? And so you just have to understand, what are these cravings? What are these deficiencies? What are they? If you know those things, then it's easy enough to figure out, okay, how can I fulfill this, right? So your budget needs to be balanced, and it needs to be valued. I'm glad that we got an even number in the room so we can do this, the workshop. So on this worksheet that we were going to cover, any questions on that? So everyone's values are going to be different, right? You know that they are, but I just want you to talk to them. There's an example of values here on page 8. And we are using Richard Bach's material, or David Bach, sorry. He's the author of Finish Rich. Chabiso mentioned starting a WhatsApp group that will have different book suggestions. So I love his series on finishing rich, starting rich. He's got rich for couples, rich for students, like he goes everywhere with it. He talks about people starting at 55 to save up for retirement, right? Because life's never over. Unfortunately, the Bible says he's given us 70 years of full strength. That's why the retirement age is 65, is because as a human being, people usually use that scripture to say we're supposed to die after 70, every other year is bonus. No. It says he's given us full strength, which means you at 69 and you at 18 are the same. You're capable until the age of 70 to do everything that you need to do work-wise. Okay? Your mind, you are expected to be of sound mind at the age of 70. You're expected to be of sound body. So there's never, oh my God, I should have learned this when I was 12. Then, you know what I mean? Like, you can do it today, right? So there is no late time to start, is really what those two things are saying. I'm not sure, guys, can you go to that page? Do you think this value sheet is complete? Is there any values that I don't think are there? I'll add this one, luxury. I usually put that in there. Because some people really do value luxury, regardless of what it is. They just want, you know, soft life, right? Confidence, fulfillment, independence, connection with others. Can anybody think of a value that they used to have? Let me just see here on my thingy, make sure I didn't list any. Values. No. Okay, so they are all good. So split up in pairs, and you guys have to go with who you don't know. I just want you guys to talk about the values that are on the front, and then at the back of the same page, you'll see examples of goals, right? So I want you to, there's two questions in there. So discuss two values, and then come up with one goal that reflects those values, okay? So first part, when you guys are just discussing, I'll give you two to 3 minutes to just discuss. So the first part of your discussion is, are you look at the values, look at the goals. Are you surprised at the difference between values and goals? And then the second part, which you're going to share with the group, is you're going to pick two values and come up with a goal that reflects those values, and then share that with the group. So we're going to take a break, and you guys can, split up in your pairs. I guess I just have to leave it. Let's see. Okay, here's oh, Brene. I love Brene. Do you guys know Brene? She's so good. I haven't seen her work in a long time. So here's another list of values. Can you guys see that? She has a lot. Oh, you can't see that. Girl, some of us are too old for that. We know this. Can you see them? Still bad. Really? Okay, maybe I can go full screen. No, not full screen. Oh, there's full screen. Can you see that now? It's still blurry. Okay, anyways, you try to see that full list of values. So yeah, Brene Brown's really good for that.
Are we supposed to rate these anywhere? I know she said discuss them, so I'm saying like.
Yeah, you can pick from the screen if you don't see values there that you want to discuss.
Oh, because there's some examples on this page. I see. They should help us. so you were